Do you have more?
No, I don't.
Yeah, you sold out. How many did you bring?
Like 9.
You told me that you from Sudan. But I'm going to take some pictures for you.
Yeah, please.
I'm sorry, my phone's like full. Do you have
Oh.
your phone?
Oh. Okay.
Take pictures of people with your books and pictures of you.
Yes.
You have a seat? Or you just stand up?
I'll get a seat. And I'm standing.
Okay, assalamu alaikum. Okay, welcome YouTube. This is the book signing event. Special book signing event for the author Maurice Hines, brother Maurice Hines, and his title, Islam and the Ancient Mysteries, Volume 1, The Mystery Schools. This is live at Masjid Habul Yameen, Saturday, July 22nd. What's the other title?
Thoughts from Sudan. Huh? Thoughts from Sudan. There's one left.
Okay. So anybody? So you guys get your book now. He's right here to sign your books. Inshallah.
So I'll let what's that? Yeah, it was a perfect situation. Yeah, they just happened to be from Sudan. Yeah. So I hope people are actually interested in this topic. I think.
I don't want to get the pressure on you, but the Imam called me from Africa, so he's looking at us. So I don't know if you want to say something, like to say what's the book about.
Yeah. Should I start?
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
The author is going to say a few words, inshallah. We're live on YouTube, mashallah.
So I don't want to interfere with the festivities. Inshallah, I want to add to the festivities, hopefully. It's very fortunate that you all are here. Alhamdulillah. Mabruk to the Arus and Aris for today. I'm also of Ahl Sudan to a certain degree. I studied there for 3 years between 2008 and 2011. And it also benefits me, I think, to present this topic that I'm going to present to this community in particular. So I thank you all for showing up here at Habul Yameen, Black Masjid, African Americans who have a history with Islam and probably a history with African American thought. And this is what I would like to add to today. So I do have a presentation. Okay, I'm going to use my teaching skill. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Maurice Hines. I'm going to be presenting about my latest publication, which I published earlier this month. It's called Islam in the Ancient Mystery Schools, Volume 1. So this is the first volume that I'm going to put out in this series. And this one is about the mystery schools. Now, I'm an author, I'm an educator, I'm a librarian, I'm also a community servant. So I'm here to serve you. I have 3 master's degrees. The first one I did in Sudan. It was in teaching Arabic to non-native speakers. My second master's was in library science. And this is the field that I work in today. But my last position was in Cairo at an American university in Cairo. And there I did another master's degree. This time it was in Islamic studies. So the thesis that I did for that degree, this is what I'm developing into a book right now. Is that right here? Right here? Okay. Okay. So I don't know if anyone's interested. I had a PowerPoint, but we don't have a projector. So if you would like to actually see the PowerPoint, they come up close. You can make this an intimate atmosphere if you're interested in exploring this topic. So the title of this presentation is Islam and the Ancient Mysteries, What Every Muslim Should Know. So I know this sounds like a very cryptic topic. And I'm going to explain in one moment. First, I have 3 major ideas, 3 major claims that I want to make to you today. And I think these claims that I make will help you understand the topic of this book. So the first one is a historical argument that I want to make. The first one is a historical argument that I want to make. And that is, the first is that the Sabians or the Sabiun that we know of in the Quran are the ancient mystery schools. That's claim 1. The second is a theoretical argument. So this one claims that there is a dichotomy between the Sabiun in the Quran and what we know as the Hunafa, the Hanifs. And then the third is a polemical argument. That is that there are modern mysteries among us. There are modern Sabians among us. Okay. So the first part that I'm going to present is about the history of Sabians and the mystery schools. Yes, I know. Yeah. They're quieting down. Yes. So I'll just go ahead and just present, and whoever wants to listen can listen. Okay. So I first want to talk about a little bit about how I came across this topic. So, probably like many of you, I kind of grew up in the Afrocentric milieu. Over 20 years ago, I was, really into, all these books about Black history. And there was a particular book that sort of caught my eye. And it's sort of a pivotal book in Afrocentric thought. It's called Stolen Legacy. So Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James. He wrote this book basically to say that Egypt. The subtitle is Greek philosophy is stolen Egyptian philosophy. And so he's basically claiming that what we know as Greek philosophy was actually taken from ancient Egypt. And in that, he's trying to say that, people of African descent, from Sudan particularly, they were the ones that developed what we know as Greek philosophy or philosophy in general, and they had this major contribution to the world. Now, the author, he doesn't mention Islam at all throughout the book. However, he does talk about Moors, he talks about Arabs, and in this paragraph in particular that I'm going to read to you, this is where I kind of got the topic from. So he says, during the Persian, Greek, and Roman invasions, large numbers of Egyptians fled not only to the desert and mountain regions, but also to adjacent lands in Africa, Arabia, and Asia Minor, where they lived and secretly developed the teachings which belonged to their mystery system. In the 8th century AD, the Moors, i.e. natives of Mauritania and North Africa, invaded Spain and took with them the Egyptian culture which they had preserved. Knowledge in the ancient days was centralized, i.e. it belonged to a common parent and system, i.e. the wisdom teaching or mysteries of Egypt, which the Greeks used to call Sophia. Now, Mr. James is saying a lot in this one paragraph. So he's basically saying that the remnants of the ancient religion of the world under Christianity, they kind of had to go underground. They fled into these different regions, the interior of Africa, so deeper into the Sudan, deeper into sub-Saharan Africa, and then they also went deeper into Arabia and Asia Minor. Okay, and then he skips over 1,000 years of history, and then says that they were the ones that brought it to Europe. Now, of course, there's a lot of mistakes in there, but this is what sparked my exploration. So, the question of the day, I know, is what is a mystery school? Does anyone offhand know what a mystery school is? Yes. You probably have an idea, right? Okay. 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 So just for the sake of, you're saying that it was developed, it was a system of teachings that was developed primarily in Alexandria, Egypt. Okay. 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 So it's referring to ancient Egypt. Okay, this is good. Yes, sir.
Mystery schools and mystery systems. Really, what we're talking about is these groups of people who taught whatever this knowledge was, but only specifically to people who were inducted into that school. In other words, this knowledge was not taught to the general public. It was only taught to people chosen, inducted secretly to this school. So, in other words, it's secret knowledge in the sense that the people who are part of that school guarded it very jealously. And to the people outside, it was a mystery because they had no idea what these people were teaching.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Alhamdulillah. So so I dug a little bit and found out that the word mystery here, it actually has a Greek origin to the word mysterion. So mysterion is derived from the root word Mayin, which means to close one's eyes or lips. Okay, that's sort of the linguistic meaning. And then also historically, particularly in the Middle Ages, for instance, these guilds of masonry, they were referred to as the mysteries. And mysteries was synonymous with the word crafts. So many different knowledges of technical knowledges that people had. This is what they called the mysteries. And yes, it was a secret society, so to speak. Initiates, they were known as mysties, and then the people that guided them into these crafts that taught them were called mystagogos. Now, there are many types of mystery schools that existed in the ancient world. Um, we know about a number of them in Greece. They existed all over the Near East. So we have things like the Eleusinian mysteries, the Bacchic mysteries, the Samothracian, Orphic, Dionysian, Corybantes, Isis, that was in Egypt, and then the Mithraic mysteries in Persia, and so on. There are many different types of mystery schools. And so I guess to unravel a little bit more, there was levels to the mysteries. So they dealt with this hermetic concept of as above, so below. So they had the lesser mysteries in which a person was inducted. And then the lesser mysteries, basically there was an extensive background check. There was hazing to sort of weed out people that weren't very serious. And then they also studied earthly phenomenon. So these are the people that studied agriculture, they studied seafaring, they studied botany, they studied chemistry, medicine, physics, all these things that we know about, the liberal arts and things of that nature. Okay, so it's not too different from the average university nowadays. But then there's the greater mysteries. So the higher level is the greater mysteries. Of course, this is only for an initiated minority. And these people are going to become the high priests, they're the rulers, they're the people who are in the know. And in addition to studying those worldly phenomenon, when they get into the greater mysteries, they start to discover the celestial phenomenon. So astrology, that's their chief science, the knowledge of the stars, and nadhr fi nujum. They also studied meteorology. So meteorology is, telling the weather, but back in those times, it was considered, one of these secret arts. And there's even in the Islamic tradition, a lot of debate over whether meteorology was actually halal or not. And then geomancy, controlling things that happen on Earth, alchemy, metaphysics. So for every sort of earthly knowledge, there was a meta knowledge, there was a greater knowledge that they supposedly studied in the greater mysteries. Now, does the Quran talk about the mystery schools? Yes. So I guess one of the questions that I kind of had to deal with is, does the Quran talk about the mystery schools, or will we find it anywhere in the Arabic Islamic tradition? And so, when I first started this exploration, and I was reading, George D.M. James, the Afrocentric works, and he cites a lot of, Masonic sources and theosophic sources and this, and that. But I wasn't really able to make the connection until I started reading about the Sabiun in the Islamic tradition. And so we know that there are 3 verses in the Quran that mention the Sabiun. And they are the Quran, Al-Baqarah, verse 62, Al-Ma'idah, verse 69, and Al-Hajj, verse 17, verse 17. Okay, so in the first two ayat, they repeat. إن الذين آمنوا والذين هادوا والصابئون والنصارى من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر وعمل صالحا فلا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. Okay, those are the first two verses, and then in the verse in Surah Al-Hajj, Allah says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, إن الذين آمنوا والذين هادوا والصابئين والنصارى والمجوس والذين أشركوا إن الله يفصل بينهم يوم القيامة إن الله على كل شيء شهيد. So these three mentions in these verses, when we're reading them, I'm pretty sure you all have read them several times, but it's very easy to look over this Sabi'un. We think we know who the Alladina Hadu, the Jews, are. We think we know who the Nasara are. We even might think that we know who the Majus are, but the Sabi'un, maybe not so much. Okay, so what I did in my master's thesis was explore this idea of the Sabi'un, the Sabians. So I need to make a note that the Sabians that I'm referring to are not the people of Saba that are mentioned in the Quran. These are the Sabi'un. So Saba is with the sin and Sabi'un is with the Sad, right? So I went through several different tafsirs. One of the earliest tafsir by Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabari. Many of the later tafsirs don't really depart much from what he has to say about it. And he quotes a number of scholars that came before him. So in summary, they basically said that these are the people of southern Iraq, okay, in the Sawad of Iraq, who are known as Mandeans today. Or in Iraq, they call them Subba, which is their term for a Sabian. Some have said that these are monotheists who pray and have a scripture. Others have said that they direct their worship to the angels and the stars. Others have said that these are that Muslims cannot marry their women and they cannot eat their meat. Okay, although they're kind of like people of the book. And then in one hadith reference, the Meccans used to call the early Muslims Sabians, which is very interesting. We won't talk about that right now, but the other exegetes, they've kind of added a few bits of information to this. For instance, Al-Qurtubi, he says that linguistically, Saba, it means to leave, or it can mean to rise in a certain place, like a star, or like the two front teeth of a child. So when a child gets their two front teeth, they're known as Sabi, as a boy. And then Zamakhshari kind of clarifies. He says that this is a person that left one of the religions of the people of the book. And then Ibn Kathir says that it's a mixture of different religions, so a syncretic religion or a primitive or unknown religion. Okay, so there's all these different ideas about the Sabi'un and who they were. And I think they knew who they were. So in addition to that, there's a historical perspective. So there's this Andalusian scholar named Sa'id al-Andalusi. He wrote this book called Tabaqat al-Ummam. And basically he says that the religion of the ancient world were all Sabians. Which, if we're reading, some of these like theosophical texts and Masonry, they all talk about the mysteries as being the ancient religion of the world. So Sa'id al-Andalusi, he was actually pretty racist. He thought that people in sub-Saharan Africa were stupid, and also people in Northern Europe he called them stupid as well. Now I don't know how many of you can see this. This is a map of the Near East. I can describe it for you. But this is a map of the Near East. So most people, most Arab and Muslim writers, they talk about the Sabiun of Haran, this place called Haran, which is located in Asia Minor, kind of at the border of Turkey and Iraq. Um, and, and I have a free book for anyone who can give me 3 facts about Haran. 3 facts about Haran. Just anything that you know about the history of this place called Haran. What's that? Okay. Yes. Think the Bible. It's mentioned in the Bible. What's that? The valley. No. Yes.
Is that where some people believe the Garden of Eden was?
No, I don't think so. Yes, sir. The flood? Okay. Maybe I'll come back to that. But Haran is a very interesting place in the history of the Near East. So Haran is basically like the pagan stronghold of the ancient world. It's not his birthplace, but he did live there for some time. So Ibrahim, alayhi salam, it said in the Bible that after he left his people in Ur, he went to Haran. Okay. And not only that, but no, he didn't die there. Not that I know of. So there's 3. So the fact that Ibrahim was there is one. The fact that it's a pagan stronghold, even up into Islamic times, they resisted, being converted to Christianity, and they didn't really resist Islam, but they kind of had their own thing going. Also, the family of Ibn Taymiyyah is originally from Haran, and if you know anything about Haran, it's steeped in like this Neoplatonist philosophy, and Ibn Taymiyyah and his lineage, they were very much studied philosophy. You can see it in his writings, although he kind of opposes it to a certain degree. So other places where Sabians are known, of course, we said Sawad of Iraq. So this is southern Iraq, and these are the people that are known as the Mandaeans to this day. They exist, and a lot of them, I guess, they're situated in like places like San Diego and Michigan, and I think Australia, because of what's happening in Iraq and the persecution and things like that. And we'll come back to the Mandaeans. And then, not only that, but in other Arabic texts, you see that Greece is the place of the Sabians. So all the philosophers, they're considered to be Sabiun. Egypt, the religion, and there's one writer that says that the religion of ancient Egypt was called Saba. It's called Sabia. And this is actually evidence because I think I was actually in the Source of Knowledge bookstore the other day, and I saw this book by Asa Hilliard. Not Asa Hilliard. I think Asa Hilliard. And it had this symbol that I recognized from my research, and it means star, Saba. And it's the same exact pronunciation in ancient ancient Egyptian as it is in Arabic, and it means star. So this idea of star worship, if you add, nether to it, then it means like the angels that reside in the stars and so on. So Egypt is most definitely a place of Sabianism. And not only that, but the Mandaeans of today, they claim that the religion that they follow is actually the same religion as ancient Egypt. Nubia. So some of the writings, they say that the indigenous African religions were also Sabians. India, East Asia, like all these religions of the ancient world are Sabians. And Hinduism is actually, kind of a good example of that. I mean, if you read the Hindu scriptures, they sound very monotheistic. They sound very monotheistic, but in practice, they have all these entities that they worship and things like that. So basically, the religion of the ancient world kind of come from this idea of Sabianism. They kind of all follow the same structure. Yes, at the beginning they believe in one God, but then they say, no, God is too transcendent. He's unconcerned with the affairs of human beings. So we have to find some sort of intercessor in order to worship them through. So I'm going to read just a few brief paragraphs from my book that I think really get the point across. So bear with me. So it says, while the origin of all religions is one, two major factions began to develop over time. One faction, at times known as Hanifs, Orthodox, or Traditionalists, held on to its original monotheistic creed, and the other, known as Sabians, Gnostics, or Spiritualists, innovated ideas that deviated from the creed of monotheism and claimed that God was too transcendent to be worshipped directly, and it required intercessors by which their worship is transferred to God. This is demonstrated by the Quranic verse in Zumar, verse 3, on the tongues of the polytheists who state, we only worship them to bring us closer to God. Okay? Regardless of the language and local religious customs, the aberrated versions of the primordial religion became known for its worshipful reverence of the stars and their personification in the form of mythical beings, which Muslims know to either be malaika, angels, or jinn. And I think this is a very important point. The Quran brings to us some new knowledge that perhaps people in the previous scripture forgot, or maybe it wasn't revealed. This classification of humans, malaika, and jinn. And the Quran constantly repeating, Iblis kana min al jinn. So this idea of being a fallen angel, we don't have that. This idea of fallen angels, it confuses a lot of Christians when they read the Bible and things like that, and especially when they get into some of the apocrypha, the books that aren't in the Bible, like the book of Enoch. And they talk about all sorts of things, fallen angels and different classifications of angels. And so the Quran really makes it clear, that, for instance, an angel would never ask a human being to worship him. Okay? A jinn might. And so this is, how we come to understand it. So the followers of these aberrated religions also built megalithic temples and other structures that aligned with celestial movements and often ornamented with pictorial writings containing doctrine, wisdom, and the stories of kings and queens. So if we look all over the ancient world, even in the Americas, you find these huge rock structures, and the scientists that study them, they say, oh, they align with this star, and this thing happens at certain periods of time, and so they have these. You can see that they're all sort of working. They're working with this knowledge of the stars, and not only that, but they're preserving some of the wisdom of their rulers and their high priests through whatever they left behind. So, and then it says they were also known for their scientific explorations and philosophical speculations. Astronomy, the chief of their sciences, aided in their worship of the stars as well as predictions of future events for agricultural, imperial, and individualized purposes. They often believed in the eternity of the universe and reincarnation, and engaged in human sacrifice. This was much the case in the ancient world. So there were certain things that they were known for, of course, astrology and sciences and things like that. At the same time, human sacrifice. It's not very, not really cool, right? They believed in reincarnation, and this is tied in with their idea of the eternity of the universe. So the eternity of the universe is a concept that has been debated, since ancient times. And if you read some of the writings of early Christian scholars like Origen, Clement, Tertullian, and all these people, they talk about, this idea of the I guess the debate between the universe being created versus it not created. Okay, all the Sabians and Gnostics and philosophers, Aristotle in particular, said that the universe was not created, and that basically, like, the universe has always existed, and then God just sort of works with that, if they believe in God. And then the Hanifs always argued that the universe was created by God. And so this last part I'm going to read is knowledge of this dichotomy has been lost to history due to many factors. Okay, so we don't often talk about this Sabian-Hanif dichotomy. This is my theoretical perspective. So we're not often aware of this, but I think this underlies a lot of things that have happened in history. It's also underlying a lot of things that are happening now. So it says the Hanif faction, in the form of the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, have managed to gain religious and political authority, which has drowned out the perspectives of the Sabian factions, made their practices of calling on spirits and conducting human sacrifice taboo, if not punishable by law, and marginalized their influence in societies where the Hanif doctrines dominate. Okay, so basically, with the rise of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, Sabianism had to go underground, become a mystery and unknown. So just a very brief sort of overview of the mystery schools. So no one really knows the exact origins of the mystery schools, but scholars say they go back to at least the 8th century BCE. Okay? So what we know of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they all challenged the mysteries or the Sabians. However, both Judaism at certain points and certain groups, as well as Christianity, they both kind of absorbed aspects of the mysteries. Islam did too, to a certain degree, but they managed to separate certain things. We'll talk about that in one moment. So Judaism, a lot of the Gnostic movements, they actually came out of Judaism, particularly in the Samaritans. And then in Christianity, um, the first 2 centuries of Christianity, the Holy Roman Emperor, who was basically the leader of the mystery schools, they were persecuting the Christians up until the 4th century, the 300s, when what happened in 325? So Constantine embraces Christianity, and he convenes the Council of Nicaea. It's not just the Council of Nicaea, but there's several of these ecumenical councils that come. They've done it from the 4th century until the 6th century. They've had all these councils to determine what is orthodoxy in Christianity. So in the 4th century, so just think about what happened here. Constantine, who was supposed to be Pontifex Maximus. Pontifex Maximus means that they're the temporal authority, they're the ruler, and they're also the spiritual ruler. They're the high priest. So that person switches religions. And not only just to any religion, but he switches to a religion that is hostile against the other religion, this previous religion. So, that really kind of puts the subsequent Holy Roman emperors into this bind, right? Where they have to figure out, okay, do we let the mysteries continue, or do we just go with Christianity wholesale? And so over the course of that century, the 4th century, there's many different rulers. For instance, there's Julian, who starts off as a Christian, but then he apostates, and he lets all these different Christian sects back. He let the mystery sort of run route. And then later on in the century, Theodosius, he takes a firm stance and says, no more mysteries. And he starts to fight against them and wipe them out. Now, they're actually in decline already by this point, because, like I said, they had this heyday in the really ancient times, but by the time that Christianity is around, I don't know if you read anything about these bacchanalia. It's even sort of slang to a certain degree. Bacchanalia is orgies and all sorts of stuff that many religious people don't deal with. They have these very graphic plays that they're doing. Their literature is just sort of, if you look around and basically on television, that's what it was like in ancient Rome at the time. So the mysteries, probably even worse. So Christianity, being a more conservative spiritual system, they of course weren't cool with a lot of the things that were happening in the mysteries. And if the emperor was Christian, then he would say, no, you can't practice that, maybe on a Sunday, or you can't do certain things. So they first enacted laws to sort of limit the mysteries, but then by the end of the 4th century, Theodosius had a program to wipe them out. And so Theodosius, Justinian, and then another Roman emperor named Maurice, who existed at the time of the Prophet, they all participated in these raids of the Sabians, or the mysteries, Neoplatonic schools, and things like that. Now, actually, on the Persian side, they had a different sort of issue with the mysteries. So in Persia, this actually goes back all the way back to Alexander the Great. When Alexander comes in and conquers Persia in 300s BCE, he basically he comes and kills their ruler Darius III, and He defaces all the buildings. He destroys their buildings. He takes all their manuscripts, takes them back to his capital, which is where? Where's the capital of that Alexandria built? I mean, okay. I gave it, yes. So he takes it back to Alexandria in Egypt. He has all these manuscripts translated from Persian into Coptic and Greek, and then he burns the Persian originals. So Persia, after this onslaught, they tried to rebuild and reclaim their the knowledge of their mysteries, and they did this by actually sending for manuscripts that existed on the outskirts of the Persian Empire. So in India, in China, all these Uzbekistan and places like that, they had Persian manuscripts, and so they tried to rebuild their mysteries. They tried to reclaim their knowledge that way. Now, this isn't something that comes very easily. So it had to go through, several centuries of this, of them trying to rebuild their mysteries. Now, in the meantime, guess who shows up? Yes, Islam. And so, of course, within a couple of, a couple of years after the establishment of Islam in the Arabian Peninsula, the Muslims overtake Persia, and the Umayyads, they kind of did their thing for about 100 years, but it was really the Abbasids that took over this Persian project of rebuilding the mysteries. It was what they call the translation movement. And so the Abbasid Caliphate, they were into astrology and stuff like that. I don't know if we knew that. They're really into like this ancient knowledge and stuff. So they adopted some of this stuff from the ancient mystery schools or the Sabians, but they made sure that they always kind of had the Hanif perspective going. Now, if we read into this history just a little bit, and this is just my hypothesis, the Mu'tazilites, the school of the theological school of the Mu'tazilites, they appeared during the Abbasid era. And this is actually where, a lot of the Abbasid caliphs, they embraced this philosophy. And the Mu'tazilites, they were really into reading the works of the ancients and philosophy and things like that. So they were getting this influence from the Sabians. And so what I think, what happens, it comes to a pinnacle with Ahmed ibn Hanbal, with the whole Mihna. I don't know if y'all are familiar with this story. Are y'all familiar with the Mihna? Okay. But anyway, some of these debates, they start to appear within the Muslim history as well. So, and I don't know exactly where to put this, but I need to say something about Hermes. So Hermes, in Greek, Arabic, and even like ancient Christian scholarly works, they say that Hermes is the same as Enoch. Enoch is the same as Idris, and he's also the same as Tahuti. Tahuti in ancient Egypt. Okay, so there's this figure, Hermes Trismegistus, who, you can even read about him in Suyuti's work. Suyuti is a classical Egyptian scholar, and he talks about, the different Hermeses that are out there. But pretty much all the Muslim scholars are unanimous that Hermes is Idris. Idris, Prophet Idris alayhi salam, or Enoch. Okay, and not only that, but the Sabians, they claim that their main prophet is Hermes. Now there's a debate over whether or not Hermes is actually like one person or if there's multiple Hermeses. But that's generally what it comes down to. So, nowadays there are people who claim to, have some sort of Hermetic philosophy. Um, and it's like they're reinventing this mystery school thing by, I guess, by taking Hermes as their prophet or their sage. Now, I have a timeline of events, just to sort of bring it closer to home. I mean, so starting over here, for instance, in 527, this is when Justinian becomes the ruler of Rome, right? And yes, it's also in the book. So you can take a picture. It's fine. Okay, show. So Justinian, he's one of the people that's wiping out the mystery schools, right? This is in 527 AD or CE, right? And then Chosroes, the first from Persia, he's a Persian king. He's also rebuilding the Persian mysteries. And then in 541, the plague breaks out. The bubonic plague breaks out. It starts in Egypt, and then it spreads throughout the Roman Empire, spreads to Persia, all the way to China. And this is just about 20 years before the birth of the Prophet Muhammad. Yeah, well, this one, it kind of ends, where does it end? Around 549, but there's like these other plagues that are breaking out well into Islamic times. Yeah, so there's one in the Middle Ages later on as well. And is born around 570, so about 20 years. And if we think about it, when he's young, he goes out to Bani Sa'd, right? He goes out to Bani Sa'd. And do you all know why they say that he was sent to Bani Sa'd? To be a wet nurse? Yeah. Yes.
Part of it was to raise them up in that type of environment outside of the city and the rural area. Okay. And that was,
Why would they raise them outside of the city areas? So, yeah, so I mean, I guess there's a few purposes. They said that it's because they want him to learn fasaha. They want him to learn the tongues of the Bedouin Arabs. But they also say that, there's diseases in the cities that persist in the cities that he can get immunity to in the desert. And so, ideally, in the desert women, desert people, they're more equipped to deal with these diseases. So I'm really sort of looking at, how this exploration kind of plays into how we understand the stories that we hear in the Quran and in the Seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then, of course, there's Maurice, Emperor Maurice. He's wiping out Haranian pagans in 590. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is about 20 years old, and then Maurice is executed in 602, and this is before the prophetic mission of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we can see that there's these Sabians, these mysteries, they're existing probably on the outskirts of Arabia, and maybe they're being driven inside into Arabia around this time. I haven't mentioned them yet. So and then the hijrah is in 622. So the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he starts his mission at 609, 610, and then of course he completes his he passes away in 632. Mecca accepts Islam. Also, at the time, who were the emperors in Rome and Persia? Heraclius, and in Persia, it's Chosroes the second, who's the grandson of Chosroes the first. Yes. What's that? A Najashi, yeah. Yes, sir.
Just to go back just a little bit. So, were there any Sabians in Arabia?
So actually, maybe I didn't. So actually, even in some of the literature, the Arabic literature, they say that the Arabian religions were initially influenced by Sabians, and they say that Arabia follows Chaldea. Uh, Chaldea is actually synonymous with star worshiper. So even in ancient Greek texts and stuff like that, an astrologer or someone who knows the future or whatever, they call him a Chaldean or Kesdin in Arabic. So we'll get to that one moment. So yeah, and then of course so I was saying that Heraclius was the emperor in Rome. Chosroes the second was emperor in Persia, and the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam sent them both letters. So Chosroes, when he received the letter, he tore it up and just sort of blew it off. And when the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam got word of that, he said, "May his kingdom be torn away in the same way that he tore up this letter." And then Heraclius, he also responded violently, and so pretty much, within a couple of years, both of their kingdoms are now part of the Islamic Empire. So, and then after that, of course, we have the Rashidin, we have the Umayyads, then the Abbasids with their translation movement, they take over the mystery. So I want to just sort of make it clear. If I had the projector, you would really be able to see this. So who do I think are the remnants of the mystery schools? The Sabians. So yes, they're the Chaldeans. They're the Chaldeans of Iraq. They're the Sabians of Egypt and of Asia Minor, Haran, and those places. Also, Hanifs. So in a lot of the Christian literature, they started referring to pagans as Hanifs or Hanputa in Syriac. And so Hanputa, it meant pagan, it meant hypocrite, polluted, all these negative things. But it was really the Arabic of the Quran that changed the meaning of the word Hanif, to put it back in its proper perspective. And then the Yahud, I think, are also a type of Sabian. And it's very controversial, right? So the Yahud, I think it's a cognate to like Judea. And the Judeans were the ones that wanted to follow the customs of the ancient Babylonians. Okay? And the philosophers of Greece and Rome, of course. The Nasara, also a type of Sabian. And if you read anything about the Mandaeans, you know that they have a priestly class called the Nazareans. And those Nazareans, they actually claim in their history that all the prophets were from their priestly class. But they have these alternative narratives. They would say, for instance, that Ibrahim alayhi salam was part of their priestly class, but he deviated So they have an alternative narrative. They say the same thing about Isa alayhi salam as well. And then the Majus, who are not particularly the same as Zoroastrians, but the Majus, the Magians, they came to mix in with the Zoroastrians to the degree that you couldn't tell the difference. And so my point actually is that these are all priestly class within their own religions. Okay, and these are the people. I think that the Quran, Allah is scolding in the Quran. So if he's criticizing any of these people, he's criticizing the Sabian faction of them, not the Hanifs. Okay. Just one last part, I guess. Well, no, I guess it's okay. So I want to talk about this Sabian Hanif dichotomy. So we know that the Sabians, the Hanif, they have the original one origin. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was from the people of Chaldea, and if you're an outsider looking in, you probably won't be able to really discern the practices of Hanif from a Sabian, except in the intentions. So if you know, like if we go to Mecca, you know, we're doing pretty much the same rituals as they were doing in pre-Islamic Arabia, but our intentions are completely different from what they used to do. But you know, we have like these Christians and stuff like that. They try to say, "Oh, you're worshiping a man in a box," and you know this, and that, and you know, because they're outsiders, they're looking in. They're like, "Oh, that looks pagan," but they don't understand that you know there's a difference of intentions behind it. And so, of course, they specialize in astrology. I'll save my my idea about the what's that? Let the huzz. Yeah. So the main difference between the main differences between Sabians and Hanifs. First is that there's an the Hanifs believe in a personal deity who is concerned with the lives of human beings, whereas the Sabians, the Sabian faction, they're not. They believe that God is transcendent. He is unconcerned with the lives of human beings. Also, they believe in the Sabians believe in prophets as authorities, whereas the Sabians, they believe sages. They can purify themselves. They can gain self-knowledge to the point where they become like angelic or gods, even, right? And then the rejection, of course, Hanifs, they reject worship of anything except Allah. And then they also believe that the universe was created and is not eternal. Now, there's I think, 12th century writer called Muhammad Shahrastani. He wrote a book called Milal wa Nihal, the books of sects and creeds. And they say it's like the first book of comparative religion or something like that. But slightly different than what we would consider to be comparative religion. But in his book, he actually has a section where he talks about Sabians. And interestingly enough, he's from Uzbekistan or someplace like that. No, Afghanistan. And on his way to Hajj, I think on his way back from Hajj, he stops in Baghdad. And he basically becomes a professor at Nizam al-Mulk, which is like the Harvard of the Muslim world at that time. And he says while he was there, he read all the books of the Sabians. And basically he came out with this typology about how paganism actually happens. And this is in this part about Sabians. And so he says that first, there are those who are ruhaniyat. They're spiritualists. So they, at this stage, they take the angels as intercessors to God. So they believe that God is too transcendent. They need some sort of intercessor. And so they worship God through the angels. And then in the second level, they begin to worship the stars. They say that the angels, they're pure spirit. And the bodies, in the same way that we have a ruh and that lives inside of our bodies, the bodies of the angels or the ruhaniyat are the stars and celestial bodies. Okay? And then they get into idol worship. Okay? So they begin to build structures aligned with the stars. We've seen that before, right? They build these structures that are aligned with the stars, their temples and things like that. They put in it images, idols, and they worship those because they say that, the stars, you can't see them at night. Certain stars, you can't see them in certain seasons. You can't see the sun at night. You can't see the moon during the day and so on. And so what do? They build these representations of them and worship them in these temples. And then they start to believe in reincarnation. They believe that any justice will be meted out in this world, and they're just caught in this cycle of rebirth, okay? Because they believe the universe is eternal. They believe everything in it is eternal. And then also, they believe in pantheism. They believe that God can be part of his creation. And they might even believe that certain human beings are God or that, someone is God. So, yes, there's Sabianism in Arabia. I'll save that for later. Let me just. Okay. So, what I really want to get at, what I think my book will help out with, and this is future explorations that I want to do in subsequent volumes of this book, and something that I think will really revive the Muslim community, particularly the Black Muslim community, is this polemical argument and understanding who the modern mystery schools are, who the modern Sabians are. So I have a quote from my book that says that knowledge of the mystery schools and Sabians has the potential to establish a new framework for understanding religious history, the roots of religious conflicts in the West, and classifying current religious trends. So, the other week, a Jehovah's Witness came to the door, and he's a very nice Nigerian guy, and we were just kind of having discussion about God and things like that. But he was actually surprised that I believed in God. He said most of the doors that he knocks on, people, they have a problem with God, or they don't believe in God, or they're just dealing with all these issues. And if we look around, in the general society, we have a prevalence of people who are they're spiritual, they're not religious. Okay, some people are vehemently anti-religious, and a lot of this, I think, is actually coming from the Sabian phenomenon. So I'm just going to go through a list of groups, people that I would identify as Sabians. So the first group I have here is Theosophy, and maybe there's not a lot of Theosophists around nowadays, or card-carrying Theosophists, but the Theosophical Society, they kind of got started in the late 19th century. Helena Blavatsky, she was, I think, originally from Russia or someplace. She had lived in Egypt for some years, and she started this group in the U.S. called the Theosophical Society. They had seances. They believe they can communicate with spirits. She was very anti-Christian, and she just kind of created this hodgepodge of religions. And she was also a charlatan. I think that's been well established. But Theosophy actually, it's pervaded a lot of thought in the United States. Like I think some of this stuff about like the New World, some of these conspiracy theories and things like that kind of come out of theosophy. And then I think what's pertinent for us is to identify these groups within the African American community. So the Moorish Science Temple, very much influenced by theosophy. We know that they don't follow an orthodox brand of Islam. Yes, they're heavily influenced by irregular Freemasonry, right? They're Egyptophiles, and so on. Goes without saying. Should I say it on camera? The Nation of Islam, also. And if you kind of look at them, they're trying to rebuild a mystery school. You know, they have their own mythology. They kind of have this syncretic beliefs. They have certain practices that are similar to the practices of the Pythagoreans. They wear certain types of clothes. They adhere to a particular type of diet. This is actually something that you'll find recurring in a lot of the mysteries and Sabian. They restrict their diets to certain things. And interestingly enough, like the Pythagoreans, they didn't eat beans. And Elijah Muhammad, and How to Eat to Live, he's like, beans, certain types of beans. And so like Elijah Muhammad is like picky, don't eat peanuts, but eat this type of bean, and then of course the 5%ers. I've heard it say that, from one of their followers that they're kind of, trying to create their own mysteries. With their 120 lessons, they have this philosophizing, numerology, I mean, Nubians, okay. Of course. I mean, Dr. York or whatever, Anu, or whatever you want to call him. Of course, he had all these different schools, based on the time period, things that he was involved in, the Nubian Islamic Hebrews, Ansar, Pure Sufi, Holy Tabernacle Ministries, Tamaray, and all this stuff. Okay, that's what he was really doing. He was trying to create his own mysteries. And of course, we have our Afrocentric brethren. I mean, I kind of consider myself to be Afrocentric to a certain degree. So maybe it's, these Kemetan types, these people that think that they can reclaim the knowledge from ancient Egypt, even though, so one thing you'll find in the Hanif system is that there's a clear chain of narration. Right? We try to establish a tradition. There's a clear chain of narration. Whereas with the ancient Egyptian religion, it doesn't exist. You have to go back and retrieve it, and you don't really know if it's correct or not. And so, people can sound deep and sound like experts, even if they know very little. Also, people who are into these traditional African religions and Afro-Caribbean religions. Those are very Sabian. I mean, if you read, some of the stuff about Yoruba, for instance, they do kind of have this idea of a belief in one God, but then they have all these intercessor spirits, right? And of course, they're pseudoscientific. Some of them, they're really into like astrology and stuff like that. Many of them are atheistic or polytheistic. So, I think that this framework can really help us understand what's going on, and then also help us better, debate these groups. So that is my lecture. Are there any questions? Maybe there are a few gaps that I. Yes. Yes. Okay. Good.
Maybe I missed something again, but when you first yeah, the Quranic. Right, yeah. When you refer to those ayahs, which refer to the Sabians, and I'll just paraphrase, well, Allah says that those who believe and Christians, Jews, whatever, and the Sabians, they should have a reward, etc. Now, so when we talk about the Sabians, are we clear as to what reference is that? I mean, how do we determine from your lecture that they were rightly guided? Because no.
How do we determine if they were rightly guided?
Yeah, because the Sabians you referred to, he said those people will get the reward.
Yes.
Yeah. So those
But-
that group.
But there is a caveat before that.
Yeah. Okay, I don't remember.
من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر
Yeah.
وعمل صالحا فلا خوف عليهم ولا
Yeah, it won't be fear. Yeah. So have we identified in the
Those-
Sabians that you talked about? Yeah, that's what.
Okay. So have we identified the rightly guided Sabians? Okay.
Because I think I was reading where Sheikh Anta at one point in discussing some of the ancient beliefs, I think he might have been referring to the Chaldeans or one of the ancient societies, and he says in one of his books that they had all the elements of pre-Islamic because they prayed 3 times a day, and they even fasted 28 days or something like that. So he referenced that there were some elements of I guess the final revelation. So or these was his reference to some of these people who were following what they
They
their
knew.
revelation at that time.
Yeah. So have we identified the rightly guided Sabians? Yes. Most of the tafsir, when they talk about that ayah, they say that these groups of people, الذين هادوا والصابئون والنصارى والمجوس ومن أشركوا منهم, if they actually believe in Allah properly, and they accept the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that's kind of implied there, and they believe in the last day, so no eternity of the universe, and then they do righteous deeds, then they will be rewarded properly. So yes, it kind of gives them a way out in that regard, but also if you go back to Shahrastani's typology, Shahrastani, when he says that the first 2 groups, the Ruhaniyat, the people that make intercessors through the angels, and the people that see the stars and what have you, the celestial bodies as bodies of the angels. He says that those people, they're kind of misguided, but they're monotheists. They're safe. Whereas people that start building idols and things like that, he clearly says that that's shirk, and he doesn't use the word shirk lightly in that book. Shahrastani, he's an adept scholar. He's one of the major scholars of the Shafi'i madhab. He's written books on Aqidah and things like that. So he's not like some sort of not some far out scholar. So I think if we wanted to say that if there is a rightly guided Sabian, it would be those people that know better, and that you can easily adjust their beliefs. Whereas people who worship idols and things like that, they're clearly far gone. They need a lot of adjustment. And then the second part of your question, did I answer? Okay. Yeah, yeah.
I think in his book, he says all the elements of Islam is there.
With these previous groups.
Yeah, groups.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So I guess my question is, well, because we believe that Islam is the religion of man, it's always been
mhm.
prophets.
Yeah.
So during these times, my question, so what was the Islam that they were supposed to follow?
So
Can we identify?
yes, I think it would be anything that resembled the Hanifs. So we haven't really historically identified like who the Hanifs were. Um, and I guess this kind of brings me to my sort of interpretation of Surah Al-An'am, the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he's talking when you know in these verses it says that Ibrahim he turns to his father Azar and he says, "Atattakhidhu asnaman aliha?" Like, do you take idols as gods? Inni araka wa qawmaka fi dhalalin mubin. So he says, like, you're clearly in error. And then after that, uh, there's a verse that's interjected. It says that Allah has shown Ibrahim the malakut samawati wal ard in order to that he be firmly like assured of his belief. And so, what is Allah? What is it that Allah showed him? He says the malakut samawati wal ard, but what does that mean? What is the malakut? Well, I think it's explained in the following verses where he looks up at the stars, and he supposedly says, "Hada Rabbi, this is my Lord." I don't think he's saying that the stars are his Lord. Uh, I differ with most of the exegetes, most of the scholars that have interpreted these verses. I don't think that Ibrahim alayhi salam was a polytheist in any way. And I use the Quran to substantiate this, because there's about 12 mentions of Hanif or Hunafa in the Quran. About 10 of them are direct reference to Ibrahim alayhi salam, and is immediately followed وَمَا أَنَا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. Is like Ibrahim was not of the polytheists. So Allah is clearly stating that he was not of the polytheists. So what I guess what I'm getting at is that if you want to look at a Hanif, you have to look at Ibrahim alayhi salam. And Ibrahim was actually shown the secrets of the Malakut. I think if you read some of the tafsirs on these ayat, it says that he was shown the secrets of the Malakut Samawati wal Ard, those that was in the heavens and in the earth. And so, I mean, you can imagine maybe it's kind of similar to the Isra and Mi'raj, that thing that really like makes the belief firm in the prophets. I think Allah has shown every prophet something that has made them certain in their belief, and this is what Ibrahim was shown, and it's fitting because his people, the Chaldeans, they were the people that worshiped the sun, moon, and the stars, and so he was shown the secrets of these things. Now, for the Sabians, they would say that no one can know the secrets of these things except an angel. So, for a human to declare himself a prophet and say that he's explored the secrets of these things, then they're like, that's ridiculous, and that's part of the reason why his people opposed him. And so he was going against what they knew to be true. going back to the Nazarenes, for instance. The Nazarenes were a priestly class of people, and they believed that they all kind of had the same rank. There's no prophets. They were either scholars or priests or whatever, or they were just ignorant laymen. Um, so, does that satisfy any part of your question? Yes, bro.
Question I had.
Okay.
Um, was there any history within the Sabians of any jinn involvement in their worship?
Aha. Yes, yes, yes. Maybe I didn't make that point clear enough. So I think so. Yes. What's that? Oh, the question was, is there any jinn in the worship of the Sabians? Uh, yes, I think so. um, I mean, like I said earlier, um, the Quran really sort of, defines, who the angels were, defines who jinn were, and so an angel would never ask a human being to worship. You know, in, in the Islamic conception, all angels do is worship God, and they fulfill, some sort of duty that Allah has appointed them to do. They do it without fail. They don't have free will. Whereas, the jinn, they have a little bit of free will, and some of them are believers, and some of them, stir mischief, right? And so, I think from an Islamic perspective, we will understand that if the spirit that you're communicating with asks you to, bow down or slaughter a child or something like that, then yeah, that's probably a jinn. And even going back to the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was about to slaughter Ishmael, right? But no. And I think Allah is trying to show us that there's a fine line here. And so he's saying that yes, Allah might command him to do this, but in the end, we're not doing that. We're not slaughtering children. It was a custom of the Sabians to always slaughter children. That's how they appeased the gods, so that they could have, the rain that they needed for the year or whatever. Any questions from back here? Alhamdulillah. Okay, Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you for entertaining us. It's actually very, very much an honor for me to do this here. Yes, sir. Oh, let me give you the mic for the audience that's tuning in.
My question is for the certainty, but because Ibrahim had certainty, because remember Allah SWT told him the birds, cut the birds and put them. So he already had Yakin, he already had certainty, right?
Yes, yes. I think he's showing him different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The armor, the command, the angel's command.
Mhm.
Allah submitting that what taught me, right? He said the command, they don't disobey Allah, right?
Yes. They don't. The angels don't disobey Allah. Anyone else? Okay. Jazakumullah khairan. Actually, this is an honor for me to do it. Do my first book talk here at Habul Yameen. Really, I guess one of the main purposes of me, starting to write this is that there's a lot of stuff that's out there on the internet nowadays. People sort of bad talking Islam, there's no Muslims there to really actually stand up, with proper knowledge, proper citations, and things like that to really defend the tradition. I don't know if y'all, you probably don't watch Sawnet or TV or whatever on YouTube. You don't need to, but even the so-called Muslims that they have there are Sabian Muslims that maybe they'll defend their own sort of understanding of Islam, but they'll never be able to defend the tradition of Islam. And so there's no like real Muslims there who can really sort of like snap those people back into reality. So inshallah, this is only the beginning. Alhamdulillah, I'm new to the area. I was living in Egypt prior to this, and I was just sort of sitting on the sidelines this whole time, gathering knowledge, writing my thesis and things like that. And then, I guess now that I'm back to the U.S., I can really do some work. So please, let me know, we can have, something like this again. If you all would like to add anything, share anything, Jazakallah khairan. I think
Yes, I would like to thank author Maurice Hines for his excellent presentation of his new book, Islam and the Ancient Mysteries, Volume 1, The Mystery Schools. And we appreciate him and continue success. All right. That's Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, YouTube.
Okay, so this is a hard copy. So.
Yeah, the hard copy is $25. It's $35 on Amazon, but this is